My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, welcome to the third video in my series about all of the makeup that I bought at Sephora in the year of 2017. That was the year before I started my YouTube channel. It was also the year before I started my no-buy year, and the year during which my beauty spending was arguably at its worst. I'm going to link the first two videos in this series right below this video at the top of the description box, and I recommend watching them before you watch this one if you haven't seen them already, because there's some introductory matter, especially in the first video, and I don't want to repeat that introductory matter in this video. I will also leave a timestamp down below. It'll be a clickable number that you can click to skip this introduction if you so choose, because before I get into the meat of this video, I have to explain where I am and what is going on. This is not some heretofore undisclosed corner of my apartment in Los Angeles or even of my sewing studio in Los Angeles. I'm actually currently in a very, very rural part of Northern California in the house that belongs to Joe's father. Joe's father doesn't live here right now. He actually hasn't lived here for quite a while. He has Parkinson's disease and it's gotten quite advanced and he can no longer live on his own. So he currently lives in an assisted living facility, and this house is badly in need of someone to take care of it. Joe and I volunteered ourselves to come up for a couple of weeks and just start, take a crack at cleaning up this house. It's a monumental job. Like when we walked in on the first night after the drive from LA, it's a drive that we were able to make in one day, but only just. It's quite a long way away from where we live. When we walked in on the first night, there was mouse poop everywhere. I mean, mouse poop on everything and mice everywhere. Yesterday morning, I went to get my laundry out of the washing machine and I opened the lid and there were two little mice alive sleeping on top of my laundry. I don't think they had been washed with my laundry. I think that they crept in after the cycle finished because it was so cool in there, and it's very, very hot. Up here it was 102 degrees yesterday and it's supposed to be 105 today. And then there's just stuff, a lot of old food, a lot of very, very old food that had to be disposed of, spills, old spills that have just been setting into the carpet and into the floors for years, I think, and just things that need to be boxed up and taken care of. It's a huge job, as anyone who has ever gone in and sort of taken care of a house after a parent has had to leave that house for one reason or another will know. The only person who's excited about the mice is Sadie. We did bring her with us. I know that many of you will be wondering. She hated the car ride. She doesn't like being in the car, but once we got here and she got on the hunt, she was psyched. And I think that it's been nice for her to have a change of scene. She's actually in the corner of the room that I'm using to film right now, so maybe she'll come over here and make a cameo in the video. So we're here for a little while. We are still in the middle of moving out of our sewing studio in downtown Los Angeles. That's a huge job. As many of you know, we've had to close our small business because of COVID, but we have until the end of July to move out of that space. So we decided to just get out of the city for a little while and contribute our able bodies to this task before then going back next month and finishing that task. If you would like to know more about or see more of this adventure that we're having, I recommend checking out my Instagram, because I have been posting a haunting photo docu-series of particularly evocative corners of this house. It's very avocado colored bathtub, peeling linoleum, sparkly popcorn ceiling. It's very that. It's very mice in the laundry, very decades old chocolate syrup, very creepy stuff in the back of the closet. It's very that. I will, of course, talk more about this experience in my June check-in, which is coming up soon, because coming up here and doing this job was a major feature of the month of June for us. And needless to say, this was just the best that I could do for a YouTube background. This is the only available space for setting up to film. This is the only thing that I could find in the house that added any kind of aesthetic value to the frame, and I'm just hoping for the best, hoping that the video turns out okay. I didn't have enough time to pre-film enough videos to cover the length of time that would be up here, so I'm just doing my best with the resources that I have. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Before we launch into talking about my first purchase at Sephora in September of 2017, which is what's next, I want to let you know that I've decided to tack a fourth video onto this series. I'm going to film a whole reconnoitering and reflecting video, but I'm going to do it Q&A style. Because in the comment sections of the first two videos in this series, there were a lot of questions and a lot of repeated questions. So I have been keeping a list of the most asked questions. A lot of people have been asking about the context of that year, the mental and emotional context, the financial context. A lot of people want to know how I was able to afford all of this makeup, if I was able to afford it, or if I was putting it on credit cards, if I was going into debt. And I think the most asked question is whether I was hiding this behavior from friends and family, and specifically from Joe, if they knew about it or not, and anyone who did know about it, what did they think about it? Why didn't they try to rescue me? A lot of people seem to have that question. So those questions are on this list and a couple of other ones that have come up. I'm just letting you know so that you can look forward to that video, and also so that if those questions come up for you while you're watching, you can save yourself the trouble of asking them. The first order that I made from Sephora in September of 2017 was on September 6th. And I remember this particular order with crystal clarity because I wasn't at home when I placed this online order. I was at an artist colony in Virginia. The reason that I remember this online order so clearly is that I felt super ashamed of it. I was in this beautiful place. I was with other artists and writers. So for the most part, during the time that I was at the artist colony, I was spending my days working on my manuscript, and then I was spending my evenings sitting around with these brilliant, talented people talking and not wishing that I could go shopping for makeup, not wanting to buy makeup. It was a context in which I was fully sated. And you would think that I would have been able to just not go online and not shop for makeup for the entire time. I actually remember hoping that I would be able to get through the entire length of the residency, which I think was 2 or 3 weeks, without going to Sephora and placing an online order for makeup, without wanting makeup, without shopping for makeup. I was like, what better opportunity than this to just shake off that habit, or at least step away from that habit for a little while. I didn't, however, make myself a clear rule. I think if I had taken myself in hand and told myself that I was vowing not to buy any makeup for the entire time, then I could have done it. But I didn't do that. And it makes sense given my behavior up to this point, given how entrenched the habit was. Me just vaguely hoping that I might be able to sort of drift away from that habit was a pipe dream. That was delusional for me to simply hope rather than actually taking myself in hand. It didn't work. So I placed this order from the artist colony for the Kat Von D Everlasting Glimmer Veil. It had just been released. I was very seduced by the idea of this rusty orange glitter lip, so I purchased the color Rocker. And then the other thing that I am absolutely and without a doubt sure that I bought when I placed this order was the NARS Board de Plage highlighting palette. Do you guys remember that palette? I had it for a long time, and my all-time favorite powder highlight was in that palette. It's called Rivage. And I mostly just used that highlight. I mean, I almost exclusively used that highlight. It was one of these situations where I bought this highlighting palette that would have worked for a variety of skin tones, and it had matte bronzers, which I never used. It had the 2 matte bronzers, and then it had 4 highlights. And all I did with it was to use the one highlight that was the perfect match for my skin tone over and over and over again. I hit pan on it, and then pretty recently I decided to declutter that palette because the other products in it were very beautiful, and I was just never going to use them. I can't remember whether I gave it away or donated it, but I decluttered it, I think, sometime either towards the end of last year or at the beginning of this year. It was a beautiful palette, especially that one highlight. I think the thing that's important about it in this context is that it's missing from my order history. And many of you informed me, because I was asking about it in the other videos, that if something isn't available on the website anymore, it's frequently missing from this order history record. And that is certainly what's going on here. And so that tells me that there are probably a lot of things missing from these videos, a lot of things missing from this record. I happen to remember this one purchase very clearly, so I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that that palette is missing here, but there are a lot of things that I don't remember. Luckily, I do know exactly how much money I spent in 2017, so I can give that number at the end of this video, which I will do, instead of having to go through and add everything up. Because if I were to go through and add up all of the prices of all of the makeup that this record says that I bought, we still wouldn't have the full picture. We still wouldn't have the number. So my next Sephora purchase was on September 17th. I was back in LA. I was back at it, and Fenty Beauty had just launched, and I was really excited. It was really exciting when Fenty launched. Do you guys remember when she dropped that huge shade range of foundation all at once and completely shook up the game? We just knew that it was a revolution, and this was the bit of Fenty that I felt like I could afford to buy for myself. So I bought the Gloss Bomb, but the record shows that I bought 2 of them, and I was constantly buying the Gloss Bomb as a gift. I think that this one I might have purchased as a gift for Joe's niece, but you'll see me as we go through the rest of the year constantly buying the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb, the original one, Fenty Glow, because I felt like it was such a great gift. And it is a great gift. And I did love the one that I bought. I actually panned it. 5 days later, on September 22nd, I went back to the Sephora at the Grove, which is where I had made that purchase, and I repurchased the Sunday Riley Power Couple, so the duo with a small size of Luna, the retinol sleeping oil, and Good Genes lactic acid serum. I had purchased it some months before, and I was clearly going through it very quickly. It was $82 for these small sizes. I wonder whether it would have been better for me to buy the bigger sizes if I was insisting on using these products. It's just, I remember when I saw the record of having bought this Power Couple kit the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I just felt like I really wanted to use those products, and I felt like $82 was a good deal. But is it a good deal if you're repurchasing it just a couple of months later? Also on this visit to Sephora, I bought a discovery collection of perfumes, and seeing the little tiny vials is reminding me just how voraciously I sought the perfect scent, the signature scent. I was really obsessed with using scent to enhance and improve and perfect my life. And I am a person whose mood can be elevated by scent. I do think that scent is very powerful. I love having a nice candle here and there, a bit of incense here and there. I love a good perfume, but I used to pursue scent obsessively as if it was gonna like fix me. As if the right perfume was going to transform me into the woman that I always hoped that I would be. And seeing this purchase of these little vials, $20 for all of these little minis of perfume, it just reminds me of that headspace that I was in for so long. And I also, when I did my perfume declutter earlier this year, I decluttered, I think, probably every single one of these little vials. Just 4 days later, I went back to the Grove and I purchased the Sunday Riley UFO oil, and I replaced my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz. This is sort of bananas because I was at the artist colony at the beginning of September. I think probably for at least the first week, if not the first week and a half of September. It was an incredibly fulfilling experience. It was a chance to get back in touch with myself, my intellect, my creativity. Again, you would think that that would be the kind of thing that would allow me to get some distance from this voracious, unhealthy habit, kind of check myself. You would think that I maybe would come back refreshed and renewed. But I came back and went in person to the Sephora in this big shopping mall in LA 3 times in a row within like the last week and a half of the month. I think that when I bought this bottle of UFO oil, the salicylic acid oil from Sunday Riley, I think it was a gift because I was always trying to convince my family members and friends who struggle with acne to try it because they felt like it had done such good for my skin. And it was the big bottle. I spent $80 and I bought the big bottle. And if I were buying it for myself, I don't think I would have done that. I was always buying the little half-ounce bottle for myself, like whittling away just a little bit at a time. But if I was buying it as a gift for someone, I could totally have seen myself buying the full-size bottle. And I also think that because just 10 days later, I went back to Sephora and I bought the half-ounce bottle. So I think that that half-ounce purchase in October was for myself. I think that this full bottle was a gift for someone else, although I can't remember who it was. And then the Brow Wiz, I was just constantly replacing it, $23 every couple of months, which really starts to add up. Now I can see, and towards the end of my no-buy year, I started to see that for a short-term staple, something that you're going to be repurchasing like 5 times a year, it makes sense to go for something drugstore priced instead of investing in these luxury things, because it's not an investment. It's not an investment, a brow pencil. It's something that you're going to use up really quickly, at least for me, with my brows and my style. So my next purchase was on October 9th. I went to the Sephora inside JCPenney at the Glendale Galleria, which is like this huge multifaceted mall complex, yet another one of them in LA. And I was also buying a gift on this occasion. So I purchased the Becca highlight minis kit. So there's like a mini powder highlight and a mini spotlight wand of the liquid highlight. And I also purchased another Fenty gloss bomb, and those two things together were a gift for my friend Julene. I think I was going to go to another tango festival in Portland. I was going to be staying with her again, and I wanted to bring her a gift. And then I also at that same time bought myself the half-ounce bottle of the Sunday Riley UFO oil. On that same day, I went to another Sephora at the Glendale Galleria. So I bought some stuff at the one inside of JCPenney, and then I went to the bigger Sephora across the way in another part of the mall. There's a lot of Sephoras going on here and there in LA. And in that Sephora, I bought the Clinique Cheek Pop blush in Fig Pop. And I remember this. I didn't have any reason to like buy or want that blush. I remember just being like, this'll do to like get me through this. Here's a thing that I can buy that I have a weird disassociated memory like attached to this blush where I just remember buying it just to buy something, just to feel something. I was just like, this will give me the thing that I need, which is that feeling that I got a thing that's exciting in some way. I did like that blush and I used it for quite a while. I only recently gave it away. I gave it to Lauren because I just felt like it was a little bit redundant in my collection color-wise, and I'm not really wearing that many powder blushes these days. But looking back on this purchase, it's just like, I just bought it to buy it. And then at that same time, I bought a Dr. Dennis Gross peel, like some of those peel pads. Now I feel like it's such a bad thing to buy for so many reasons. It's like they're individually wrapped, individual packets, and they create a lot of waste, and it's only 5 treatments for almost $20. It's just not a smart choice in any realm. And it's also just yet another acid treatment for the face. And there are so many forms of acid treatment for the face. There are so many AHA, BHA treatments. There are so many chemical exfoliants on the market. I thought that this one was really great at the time. And I'm not saying it doesn't do its job. I'm not saying it's not effective. It just wouldn't even be close to the top of my list of choices for this kind of product these days. My next purchase was on October 22nd. I went to the Sephora at Marina Del Rey, so yet another big glamorous Sephora in the Los Angeles area. And this is another one where looking at what I purchased is giving me like a weird sense memory of this time and of my behavior. Because what I see is that I bought another fresh pressed vitamin C treatment from Clinique. I seem to have been kind of like chain buying that. I said this in the other video, but I feel like the Timeless Vitamin C Serum is just as powerful as this, and it lasts for so much longer. But powerful vitamin C is great, and my skin loves it, so I understand why I kept buying this one if it was the only one that I really felt at the time was going to do the job. And then the only other thing that I bought on that trip to the Marina Del Rey Sephora was this little almost 2-ounce mini of the Clinique cleansing oil. I can see the writing on the wall here. What was going on was that I didn't have any money. And I also remember that I didn't have any money at this time in my life, any extra money. I didn't have savings because anytime I saved any money, I would inevitably end up taking it out of my savings to bail myself out of credit card debt because I was constantly putting all of this stuff that I shouldn't have been buying on my credit card. We were depending on the business to support us, but it was taking a while to kind of get the business up and running in Los Angeles, and moving to LA and moving to the business to LA had really been very expensive. So I had no business buying any of this stuff, and my sort of like delusion had run out. Like I had been sort of going on fumes for a while in terms of thinking that this behavior was okay, and it was starting to be so so obviously not okay. Like, I could see my credit card debt, I could see my bank account, I could see my prospects in that we weren't really pulling in money. Like, the business was just trying to get going, trying to get its feet under it. And so I went to Marina Del Rey on this occasion to ape my old behavior of luxuriating in the space, in the Sephora, in the shop, in shopping. I went around swatching everything, putting things into my basket, fantasizing about buying stuff. But then at the end of the day, I could only bring myself to buy these 2 minis of very, very practical skincare products, things that I absolutely needed. And then that was it. I couldn't bring myself to do more because I knew that I shouldn't have been there to begin with. And then the next purchase is also very evocative of that headspace. On October 28th, so about a week later, I went to the Sephora at the Grove. And once again, I only made like this one little purchase. This time though, it was definitely indulgent. It was makeup. I bought the Fenty Kilowatt Freestyle Highlighter. Once again, I was so into Fenty. I was so enamored of the brand and the presence of the brand on the beauty scene, and I was so excited to support it that I felt like I had a pass. I felt like even though I was in the negative and I shouldn't have been spending any money at all, and even though I already had highlighters, I saw this highlight, the Lightning Dust Fire Crystal Highlight. It was beautiful, it was creamy, it was my colors, it was Fenty, and the component was stunning, and everything about it got me going, and I was just like, all bets are off. I have to be allowed to buy this even though I shouldn't be buying anything because it's just that special. And in makeup terms, like if we're thinking like good makeup for Hannah to buy, good makeup for Hannah's style, for Hannah's skin tone, all of this stuff, it was a good purchase. If I was just assessing it straight on as like whether this is good makeup for me or not, then I made a good decision when I bought it. And I did indeed pretty much entirely pan one side of this. And then I think I ended up decluttering it because the other side might have broken or something. But I got amazing use out of this thing, and it was my favorite highlighter for a long time. But that wasn't the only factor. The question of whether this would be good makeup for me wasn't the only question. There was this other really important question, which was whether I should have been spending any money on makeup at all. The answer to that was very much no, but I got myself off the hook of that question because of my pure enthusiasm for the brand. My brand loyalty allowed me to overlook my scruples. The other thing that I purchased on this trip was a replacement for my Shiseido facial cottons. Of course, I would have considered that to be something very utilitarian. I just started scrolling up to the next order, and it was like this huge long order, and I was like, what happened? Because I was just talking about how at this time in my life, I was starting to feel really, really sick to my stomach about how much money I was spending. And then I appeared to have made this huge order, but I know exactly why I did it. It was because of the sale, the Sephora sale, the November Sephora sale from 2017. And here we go, you guys. This is how we know when I make those videos about resisting the sale and how buying makeup on sale is not a smart choice. This is how we know that I know whereof I speak. Because here's what happened during the sale. I remember it so well. As soon as the sale hit, I placed this order online from Sephora.com for all this business, even though I remember when this happened, I only had like $150 in my bank account and I was in credit card debt. But I just felt like I couldn't miss the sale. I couldn't miss the opportunity to get these things that I really wanted. So this big purchase was a mix of replacements and indulgences. The replacement style things were an eye primer. I bought the Smashbox Photo Finish eye primer. I'm sure that I was just running out of eye primer, so I felt like I needed this one from Smashbox. I bought another of the Dr. Dennis Gross peel pads for the face, and the fact that I made this purchase again so soon after making the other one just shows what a bad deal it is, because I spent almost $20 the first time, almost $20 the second time, so I had spent $40 pretty much total on 10 treatments of this AHA product. And for $40, you can get like a really pretty good high-end AHA treatment that's like in a toner form, a liquid form, that will last for like 3 years, right? I mean, I think that my lotion P50, that's more than $40. I think it's like $70 or $80, but I have definitely had that at this point for years. And that's a really powerful AHA, BHA treatment. So it was just so short-sighted to be buying these ones. I purchased a first cleanse, a balm style cleanser. It was the Algenist melting cleanser. I know that I bought it because I saw someone talking about it on YouTube, and I didn't end up feeling like that was a very good choice for me because it was a balm style cleanser in a squeezy tube, and so I went through it very quickly, much more quickly than I would have gone through an oil, and that was almost $40 for that cleanser that I was just washing down the drain. I purchased another Fenty lip gloss as a gift, I'm sure. I only ever bought the one for myself, and then these repurchases of it were all gifts. I was just giving it away to everyone I knew at the time. And I bought a perfume. I bought a travel size spray of the Ambre 114 perfume. And then there's a bunch of other stuff in this order that's point perks. And also there's the Urban Decay, there's this duo from Urban Decay. So the all-nighter setting spray and the primer. That was my favorite primer at the time, the Urban Decay, what was it? Optical Illusion Complexion Primer. So I placed this order during the sale on November 3rd from Sephora.com. And then just a couple of days later, on November 5th, I went again to the Sephora at Marina del Rey and I bought a bunch of stuff. It was still the sale. And I do remember what happened. I was about to go to a tango festival. I was about to travel for work again. And many of the things that I had placed in this online order were things that I was about to run out of or that I was completely out of. So the cleanser, the primer, the eye primer. I remember placing the online order and then realizing that the order wasn't going to arrive before I left for my trip. And then feeling like I had to have those things for my trip. I must have been like completely out of cleanser and eye primer. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in person to the Sephora and buy the things in person. And so I was effectively buying doubles. I was effectively buying backups, but I told myself that because it was the sale, it was a smart thing to do. And that buying the Algenist cleanser again, which I did, I bought the one online and then I went to the Marina del Rey Sephora and I bought the Algenist cleanser again. I bought a different eye primer, the one from Urban Decay. I bought the Dr. Dennis Gross pads again. So at that point I had spent $60 on those peel pads just for the 15 treatments all told. I bought the gloss bomb again and I bought the primer again, and the primer is actually missing from this order. I just remember it. I think it's no longer, I think they either discontinued it or they don't carry it at Sephora anymore, the Optical Illusion Complexion Primer. I purchased a full-size bottle of it on this occasion. And I also threw something else into my cart, the Fenty Kilowatt highlighter in Moscow Mule Ginger Binge. So it was like a really, really lovely, ruddy, shiny color that I used as a blush. So I remember that across these two purchases, within a couple days of each other, one online and one in person, I doubled up on a bunch of stuff for reasons that were circumstantial. And I like made excuses for myself and told myself that it was okay because of the sale, etc., etc. But the other thing that I remember really clearly from this moment in my history with Sephora is that both orders were for quite a lot of money. Both of them were either at or approaching $200. And that might not be what it's showing in my history, again, because I think that there are probably things missing, but I remember it. I remember that $200 felt like a reasonable amount for me to be spending during the Sephora sale. That was something that I came up with that was totally abstract because I don't think I even had $200 in my bank account to spend. So I wasn't basing it on what I had, on my income, on my savings, on how much I had spent so far that year or anything. I wasn't basing it on anything. It was just a feeling that I had. I just felt like $200, or if I were able to, if I could stay under $200, then that would be okay. Then I wouldn't feel out of control. I would feel like I had just like managed myself pretty well and made smart decisions and made good purchases. Up to about $200. Yeah, that sounds right. Like that was how I felt about it. So the first order, the online order, was about $200. And then I was like, okay, I did good. That's like keeping myself in check. And then when I went to Marina del Rey in person, just 3 days later, I once again spent about $200 in store. And I felt the same way about it. I was like, $200 is like reasonable for me. This is a reasonable amount for me to be spending, especially during the sale, because I'm getting like a decent amount off because of the discount. So I was like, yeah, $200. I didn't go overboard. This is like, this makes sense for me. Good job, Hannah. You really narrowed it down. You really whittled down your basket and made a good decision. I had that feeling when I placed the online order, and then I had that feeling again when I went in person to the store and spent $200 again. A thing that I would never have done would have been to spend all $400 at one time. I would never have placed all of these things into my online cart or into my physical cart in person and then checked out. That amount of money would have sickened me. I would literally have been like, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But 2 days apart, one order online and one in person, two totally separate experiences, both of them during the sale, I was able to fool myself into spending that amount of money and buying all of those things, including all of those doubles, because I was making more than one purchase. So in that first video that I made about the Sephora sale early in my no-buy year, it was like the April sale or something during my no-buy year, one of the pieces of advice I give in that video is to only place one order. Like if you're going to shop the sale, if you're going to do it, look at the total amount of money you're spending in the sale instead of just placing an online order for an amount that feels okay and then placing another order for an amount that feels okay. I think that it's a very, very common occurrence. I think that what I did this sale, spending way more money than I would ever have been comfortable spending, but just breaking it up and diluting myself, I think it's actually very common. So that happened. I seem to have had some resolve in the middle of the year because we had moved to LA and my finances had changed. And then I seem to have kind of renewed that resolve when I went to the artist colony. I can see the record of myself struggling to do better, but without any concrete rules in place, and failing to really do better, continuing to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And then as it got very dire, like moving into November, I think my financial situation really was very dire. As it got very dire, instead of taking myself in hand, the first thing that I did was to break my resolve completely with this very foolish act during the sale. I allowed the sale to just break me down, and I allowed myself to recede back into that place of delusion and to not look at my finances. And I can tell that that's what happened because I spent a lot more money at Sephora still in November. So I made those two purchases during the sale, and then on November 10th, just 5 days after the second purchase of those two sale purchases, I made another online order, again for a fragrance discovery set. There might be something also missing from this order because that's the only thing here, a fragrance discovery set and 3 samples. The next day, I placed another online order for the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal Top Coat. This had just released. I felt like it was perfect for me because I was entranced by the idea of Natasha Denona, but I felt like the pricing was too high for me to buy like her eyeshadows or anything. But this Chroma Crystal Top Coat, it was just $28, just $30, and I felt like I could afford that just to get a little piece of the Natasha Denona pie. I remember I wanted the color nude, but it had sold out pretty much on the launch, so I settled for this other color, gray brown, and it seems to be the only thing I bought, but I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 samples and point perks and stuff into the order as well. Then on November 17th, so just 6 days later, I placed another online order. I bought the Sol de Janeiro body wash, and I bought a Dr. Jart mask, just a random sheet mask. One mask for $9. That seems nuts to me now. And I also bought a bigger bottle of Sunday Riley Good Jeans. So probably I had gone through Good Jeans faster than the Luna oil in those kits. And I had probably gotten to a point where it didn't make sense to repurchase the kit. And so I bought the 1 ounce bottle for $85. So again, this is only November 17th. And it was on November 2nd and November 5th that I had, between those 2 dates, spent about $400 during the sale. Then on November 21st, just a couple of days later, I placed another order from Sephora.com and I bought the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal top coat in the color that I had originally wanted, the color Nude. So what happened was it launched, the color that I really wanted was sold out, but I just couldn't wait. I couldn't stand it. I had to have it right away. And so I bought my second choice, which was gray brown. Then instead of just being happy with that, as soon as the color that I had actually wanted came back in stock, I bought it. And so across just a week or two, I had spent $60 on the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal top coats, the two of them. And the reason that I had allowed myself to buy it to begin with was that I had talked myself into it because I was like, oh, this is a smart choice financially. Like, it's smart for me to just spend $30 on this little bite of Natasha Denona instead of buying one of the big palettes. But using that logic, just within a week and a half, I spent $60. I also bought a Marc Jacobs highliner with this order. The highliners are good eyeliners. It's just not a smart decision for me. At that time, especially, it wasn't a smart decision for me because I didn't have a collection of eyeliners. I usually just had one or two at a time. So I would use one until I used it up and then I'd have to repurchase it. And that would happen several times a year. So this $26 eyeliner, I was repurchasing it several times a year. Just doing that twice and you've spent $50, but I was doing it like 4 or 5 times a year. That's like $125, $150 even a year just to have eyeliner. So I learned when I started thinking about this stuff during the end of my no-buy year that for short-term staples like this and like brow pencils, drugstore pricing is the way to go. So that order was on November 21st, but I still was not done for the month of November. On November 22nd, one day later, I placed another order from Sephora.com. And in this order, I bought another color of the Urban Decay glitter eyeliner. So I had the gold one and I really loved it. And this is just one of those things I was asking myself, how can I take advantage of the fact that I really love this glitter eyeliner? It's so beautiful. My heart is so full. It's such a special product. What am I going to do about that? And instead of answering that question by saying that what I was going to do about that was to wear it more, my answer at this time was that the thing I was going to do about that was to buy another one, to buy it in another color. Even though the one that I had was the best for me and I loved it so much, I just felt like there had to be more. There has to be more feeling where that came from. There has to be more excitement. I found a product I really like, so there must be a way to like double down on it and double it. That's never true. I've learned that that is never true, and this was one of those learning experiences. I do like the shade Distortion. It's like the iridescent glitter version of it, but I've never gotten as much use out of this shade as I got out of the gold one. And then the other thing that I bought in this order was an even dumber purchase. It was a Sephora Favorites hair care product collection called Big is Back. I am always trying to volumize my hair. I'm always looking for volumizing products. I love testing them out, but this was a collection of 6 hair care minis that were all designed to be used with a blow dryer. I don't even own a blow dryer and I never heat style my hair. And I knew that. Like, I looked at it and I read the descriptions of the products and I was just like, but it says big is back. It's like for big hair, and big hair is what I want. So there must be a way to make it work. It was like, again, that like cognitive dissonance thing. I was buying the idea of it and not really taking myself to task for trying to like process and think through how I would actually use the products and whether I'd actually use them. And I think one of them was like a leave-in cream that worked pretty well, but all of the other 5 I never found a use for, because if I sprayed them into my hair and then let it air dry, the product wouldn't work. It wouldn't be activated. It wasn't how they were supposed to be used. And the stuff would only ever just weigh my hair down. And so I never used any of the rest of the 5. And those 5 little bottles just kicked around in my life, taking up space, getting in the way for so long, until finally one day I was just like, none of these is for me, and I just got rid of all of them. We're finally moving into December, the last month of the year. On December 5th, I placed another order from Sephora.com. I purchased the Fenty Stunna Lip Paint. It had just released. I couldn't stand it. It was so beautiful. And indeed, it is a very beautiful color. It's a very lightweight formula. It's a lovely formula. The component is especially lovely. I was really excited to get it. You can see how Fenty was occupying my imagination towards the end of this year, and I was battling with myself. I was feeling guilty for buying stuff. I knew I had a huge problem this was December of 2017, so I was obviously getting close to making the decision to do a no-buy year and making the decision to start a YouTube channel, but Fenty could get me every time. So it's sort of an object lesson in the idea of brand loyalty and how it can lead you astray. I was looking first at Fenty and how special it was, and second at whether I really needed a red lipstick, whether I really needed to be spending this money. I just had to have it. I eventually ended up decluttering this lipstick because the formula is so runny that it was hard for me to get a clean lip line on my somewhat uneven lips. I think I gave it away towards the end of my no-buy year, actually, so probably about a year after this purchase. On December 6th, the next day, I placed another order from Sephora.com. The Milk Makeup Glitter Stick had come out in a mini, and it was another thing where I felt like I just couldn't stand it. There might also be something missing from one or both of these orders, but I think I do remember being like, oh, the Milk Makeup Glitter Stick Mini, it's only $14. I can spare $14 and it'll give me a thrill. I'll get something in the mail. I'll get to try it out. I never really liked it. It was always kind of pasty on the cheeks. It didn't really give a good shine. I ended up decluttering it, I think, during my no-buy year, but that was the December 6th purchase. And then on December 8th, just 2 days later, I placed another order from Sephora.com. What was the deal with this? I can kind of see what the deal was with this. I think I had been going through the website and I had been peeping all of the point perks and beauty offers and samples, and there were perks that I really wanted. So there was a Tom Ford lipstick as a perk, there was a Pinrose perfume as a perk, and there was a fresh sugar face polish as a beauty offer. I probably just was trying to scrape together an order that I felt like I could bring myself to place so that I could get these perks that I really wanted. So I bought another Dr. Jart sheet mask. That was the kind of thing I would always throw into the cart when I was trying to like get up the gumption to actually place an order. I bought myself the Becca highlighting kit with the little powder and the little liquid. It says in the order history that I bought it in the color Champagne Pop, but I know that that isn't true. I had it in the color Moonstone, so that must have been switched out at this point. Just more evidence that these records are flawed. But that was it. That's all I bought, just the little set of minis and the sheet mask and all of these samples and point perks. So that order was on December 8th, and then on December 9th, one day later, I went to the Sephora at the Grove. But I remember this shopping trip. I was with Joe and we were shopping for Christmas gifts for family members. The holiday season was picking up. It was getting towards mid-December, and two of the things from this purchase were gifts. So the Josie Moran plumping lip butter was a gift for Joe's sister, and I think the Sol de Janeiro Brazilian Boom Boom Cream Mini was also a gift maybe for one of his nieces. And then I clearly purchased myself a replacement of the fresh sea berry cleansing oil on this trip to Sephora. And that was it, except for the Dr. Dennis Gross Alpha Beta peels were a point perk, so I threw 3 of them into my cart as well. And that is the last order for December, which is really interesting. I know what happened next. I remember the end of December of that year. I went home for the holidays to North Carolina pretty shortly after this shopping trip to the Grove, and that is probably why my shopping at Sephora ceased. So I went home for the holidays. There wasn't a physical Sephora in driving distance, so I couldn't have gone to the store there. I also wouldn't have placed any online orders from there because I was only going to be there for a week or two, and it wouldn't have made sense to have an order shipped there when it might arrive after I had left. So that was why I stopped shopping at Sephora after this trip to the Grove on December 9th. But I do think that it's worth pointing out that after I was home for the holidays, I went directly to a tango festival in San Diego. It was a New Year's festival, and I spent the last couple of days of the year, the last days before my no-buy year began, in this hotel in San Diego vending. So I was working, I was selling my tango clothes at this festival and panic buying stuff online. Look who woke up from her nap. Sadie's such a baby. Sadie, do you like it here? Mouse Patrol? She's excited to have some new spaces to explore, especially because the spaces are also dusty and grimy. She's had cobwebs in her whiskers for the entire time we've been here. So it's interesting to look at this record and realize that my panic spending at the end of 2017 wasn't at Sephora, because my memory of those days, sorry, I've got cat hair now all over my face. My memory of those last few days of the year when I was at that tango festival working, my memory is of spending every spare minute online shopping. I was determined to stop. I knew what the rules were going to be of my no-buy year. I knew that I was going to stick to them. I knew that transformation was coming. But as long as the rules hadn't set in yet, I was gonna keep buying stuff. But apparently I didn't buy anything from Sephora during that time, and I wonder why. I might have been buying cosmetics from other sources because I didn't only shop at Sephora. I spent a lot of money at other places as well, which reminds me to point out that this is kind of just like one troubling window into my spending. This isn't all of my spending. And speaking of the extent of it, the time has come, the walrus said, for me to tell you what my spend total was. It's no longer on the website. They've taken the records down, I think, of every year before 2019. But I remember what it was because when I went back to look at my Sephora history, partway through my no-buy year, when I started getting interested in these things, I peeped my 2017 spending total, and it was $5,570 something dollars. I only looked at it one time. You better believe I wish I had taken a screenshot, and I wish I had taken screenshots of my entire spend history. I just didn't know that they were going to disappear. But also at that time, I didn't want it to ever see the light of day. I didn't know that I would ever be sitting down and filming this video. I was still deeply ashamed, horrified, and completely entrenched in the process of trying to change myself, trying to recover from this behavior. It was a wild ride, and I definitely didn't feel in any position to start down the path of self-forgiveness. That is work that I've done, that I've been doing, and that I'm continuing to do in the wake of my no-buy year. So I only looked at it the one time. I just looked at the total, but it did burn itself on my brain, and I can tell you with confidence that it was $5,570 something. I'm going to do most of my reflecting on this project and processing of this project in the upcoming video, the Q&A video. But at the end of this video, I do just want to say, in the face of that dollar amount, which again is only part of what I spent on my problem categories in 2017, because I was also buying clothes and body care and makeup from other places, thinking about that total, just going through the record of the habit, the record of the obsession and how bad it was, it puts my current budget and my current questioning of my current habits into perspective in a major way. My beauty budget for this year, if you were to spread it out across the months evenly, which I did not do, I spent a bunch of my beauty budget at the beginning of the year, and now in the middle of the year I'm kind of taking a break from spending much of my beauty budget. But if you were to spread it out, it breaks down to about $150, maybe up to $200 per month on all categories: makeup, clothes, shoes, accessories, just all of the things that I like to buy. So not just Sephora stuff. And when I decided on that budget, I looked at what it adds up to, which is close to $2,000 a year. I was allotting myself at the beginning of this year close to $2,000 to spend on this kind of thing, frivolous things, across the whole year. I looked at that total and I was like, that's a lot of money. $2,000 is a lot of money for me to make a pact with myself in advance to allow myself to spend on extras. I understand why I decided to do that. I don't want to be on a no-buy for the rest of my life. I want to exercise controlled, moderate, frivolous spending. I'm just on a path to find out what that looks like. I'm on a path to find out what the healthiest form of moderation will be, what balance actually is for me. So this year and last year have just been attempts at finding the shape of my personal moderation. So I understand why I settled on that number and why I did it, but I also am not sure. I have questions. I'm like, am I spending too much? Am I allowing myself too much money? Am I spending too much of it at once? Does the way that it ended up breaking down indicate that I still have a problem? Like I worry about myself, right? I'm always like looking at my behavior, assessing it, and questioning. It's not bad to question. Obviously, that's a lot of what we do here on this channel. But looking at the evidence of how I was before makes me less prone to be so worried about myself, because I can see so clearly that my current behavior isn't even in the same ballpark. I mean, it's not even in the same county. It's not even on the same planet as what my behavior used to be. My choices, my spending, it's only ever going to be my best guess, right? I can only ever try. I can only ever take a crack at balancing my desire for financial health with my desire for beautiful things. Back in the day, back in 2017, I wasn't taking a crack at that. I wasn't even trying. I wasn't trying to be balanced. I was just obsessively, but also kind of blindly engaging in this habit to try to shovel experiences and dopamine and stuff into the emptiness and the emptiness was really coming from the horror of knowing that I wasn't managing my behavior, that I wasn't moderating my behavior. So I felt gross because I knew that I had a problem, and in order to feel less gross, I fed the problem. I tend to sometimes, I think even subconsciously, get down on myself for being on the path, being on the journey, instead of being at the destination. And it's particularly difficult on YouTube. I think a lot of really critical comments come from that same place. They come from people wanting me to be at the destination and not being okay with me being on the path. And I tend to sometimes absorb that feedback and internalize it, and it turns into this like yucky feeling that comes from the fact that I'm a work in progress. But looking back at my past self, I am so happy to be this work in progress. Like, I'm so happy to be a work in progress at my current stage. I'm so happy to be that it's making me feel elatedly okay with not being perfect and not knowing everything, and continuing to engage in trial and error, and continuing to do that in public, on the internet, and with all of you. So this has been a very fruitful project, and I'm looking forward to answering some of your questions about it and reflecting on it more in the upcoming Q&A video. It probably won't be the next video up on my channel, but it'll be soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for seeing it through all the way to the very end of this doozy of a project, these 3 videos. It's been a lot. I really appreciate you being here. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.